As I pointed out, this is the third annual conference. At the first, there were 5 businesses in the audience. We define a business as a company that pays dividends and then pays everything else to the government. Those 5 businesses included PNC and Tudor. There were 3 others, and I've forgotten exactly who those were. At the second, the New York Congress, we got up to about 15. But something important is happening in the country. People are beginning to recognize that there are ways in which this country is not on the long-term path, the best path. And business interest in having a quality workforce and understanding that getting that workforce involves starting early is growing. At this conference, there are 35 businesses, private businesses, represented. Not always by CEOs or top people in the company, but there's a representative of that company here expressing curiosity at this point about what it is we're doing. The companies include Alcatel-Lucent Technologies, Booz Allen Hamilton, Blackstone Group, Brock Group, Caliber IFC, Capital One, Cargill, Chapman, CNA, Colebrook Realty, a couple of law firms with long names which I won't trouble with people with, but they're here. Eden Capital, Eaton Paper, Goldman Sachs, Hershey, the candy company, always sweet to have them here. IBM, Kaiser Francis Oil, Kaplan Drysdale, Lambert, Learning Care, McDonald's, McInerney, Merrill Lynch, Mersky Legal, O'Brien, PNC, Porter Novelli, Principal Financial Group, Rockefeller and Company, Standard & Poor's, Todd Allen, Travelport, Tudor, Velocity Systems, and 2 institutions which truly do pay only dividends and everything else to the government, the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond and the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis. Now, we need to be clear, nothing we're focusing on is new. Everything our researchers, talented as they are, everything our researchers are documenting about the importance of good parenting, steady loving families, good health, quality education, none of this is particularly new. It's been known, at least intuitively, since the dawn of human society. Even the importance to economic growth of early care and education has been documented or studied in the economics profession for 2 centuries. Our contribution, the partnership's contribution, is an effort to document the economic value to the United States of early care and education in a modern, globalized economy. We're all led by the others examples of others in what we do, and I'd like to mention at this point people who have mattered to me in the work that I personally am doing here. I'll first mention colleagues from Virginia. I don't know quite where they are in the room. Sometimes from the podium it's hard to spot people, but the Secretary of Education, Tom Morris, is here. Kathy Glazer, who runs Virginia's social and education programs, is here. My partner, or co-chairman in Governor Warner's Early Learning Council, and now chairman of the Virginia Early Learning Foundation, Paul Hirschbiel, is here. And I think Laurie Morris is here, who is a member of the Governor's Start Strong Council. If they could just stand up, I'd like to. The Virginia delegation is here. That's going to prove important. Paul, yeah, there they are. I've been really inspired by Paul's commitment to early care and education in Virginia. I've been particularly inspired by George Kaiser's success in Kentucky. George, we've studied what you've done, you and your colleagues, very carefully. So far, we're not able to achieve your success. We haven't been able to achieve it yet. It seems perhaps that a lot of smart people a couple of generations ago in Virginia moved to Oklahoma. The success you achieved there is remarkable. Those of you will hear momentarily from Dan Peterson, whom I'll introduce in a moment, that George is a very successful businessman, so successful in oil and banking that he's way up on everyone's lists of business success in the United States. But from my brief conversation with him in Tulsa last year, I learned something about him that I also feel for myself, though my success is much, much less. That as remarkable as the work he's done in business, he views his accomplishments in early care and education as what will do most for Oklahoma and America. What he's done there is to put the life success of every Oklahoma kid first. When you speak, George, I look forward to hearing what you have to say. George will be introduced by another man whom I admire very much, Dan Peterson. Dan is the founding president of the Buffett Early Childhood Fund. Dan, you should come up. This is your introduction because you're going to succeed me. People complain that I'm a little Prussian in my process. I tend to insist that things start and end on time. Dan is the founding president of the Buffett Early Childhood Fund. The fund targets investments in infants and toddlers through a remarkable program, the EduCare Centers, that set the highest standards for early care and education in the United States. The fund is also informing state policymakers, and I think also ultimately federal policymakers also, through the Birth to Five Policy Alliance, which in a sense we're part of. And the fund is deepening our understanding of the science of early childhood development through its support of the National Scientific Council on the Developing Child at Harvard University. The Buffett Early Childhood Fund invests in Omaha, throughout Nebraska, and across the nation. And I note with some interest in Oklahoma, in partnership with the George Kaiser Family Foundation. Now, how many of you remember where you were on the night the Berlin Wall fell? Dan Peterson does. He was there. Before entering philanthropy, Dan worked for 25 years as a journalist, including 18 years at Newsweek. In addition to the Berlin Wall fall, he has documented the fall of Margaret Thatcher and the rise of Tony Blair. And I expect if he was in that Newsweek or anywhere else now, he'd be documenting the decline of Tony Blair and the emergence of Mr. Cameron. But he's commented also frequently BBC radio, television in the U.S., and World Affairs. When I first met Dan, we were putting this partnership together. We had a very, very long and careful discussion. As I said, many people looked at this project, and despite its many limitations and challenges, they proceeded to work together. And Dan, in the discussion, was one of the most careful that I had with anyone in the process of this partnership coming together. He said something really remarkable. He said, people who don't have kids benefit in numerous ways from this work. Everybody pays taxes. A society that neglects children at risk of school failure in the first 5 years of life winds up paying the freight for that neglect big time. In remediation, foster care, and prisons. And that's not all. Economists are increasingly interested in early childhood as a smart component of state or national economic development policy. And then he said the line that sticks in my head from the moment he said it. Taxpayers are made, not born.